Grand rising, grand arrival, grand return. Peace and blessings to the righteous and repentant alike. I am Chief Sophia of the AmaruKhan Band of Indians, and this is another video channel message slash story time, which is going to be new to the channel. But I'm going to give the channel message first. So, I have basically had to say the same exact thing to two totally different people, and I realize it might be a collective message that people need to hear and really need to understand how the spirit realm works. So a lot of people are under the assumption that your spirit team is going to tell you what to do. Like you're going to get to a certain point and they're going to tell you to go right or go left. You're going to get to a certain point and they're going to indicate which choice is the better choice before you've put your input in there. And what people need to understand is that the universe is responding to our choices. As the ethereal beings, we are the ether. We are the ether. We are the ethereal beings. All of the elements respond to the ether. So based on the decision that you make as the ethereal person, the elements will respond thusly. So in this scenario, there's no way you can make a wrong decision. It's just one that's going to be less in alignment with your energy and one that's more in alignment with your energy. And so people are under the assumption that the spirit realm, their spirit team, whoever these entities are going to come in and tell them you should do this, you should do that. And that's just not how it works. If you've had a celestial reading from me, you're aware of, a few of the people on your spirit team. Of course, there's far more than that, but that gives you a good idea. So you should be using that information to make your decisions. Or a better way to describe it is, if you're familiar with your zodiacal chart, you know where your planet placements are. Well, if you do the deep dive on that and figure out what each of those energies means, whether it be Sabian symbols, whether it be, degree theory or whatever you use, you can determine what energies are assigned to you. So as long as you're always trying to be in alignment with your own personal energy, you're always going to be making the right decision. So for me, what I have noticed or come to the conclusion of is that in order for me to be in alignment with my own energy, I have to move freely. Now, it's in my natural desire to be grouped up, to have a coalition. However, in the absence of a coalition, I have to be the coalition myself, which is something I really don't want to do. I don't desire that. But at the same time, I see that sometimes everyone has their own journey, and just because my journey and my placements indicate swift action, everybody's placements don't indicate that. Some people will, get in when they fit in later on. And so I have been trying to modify my desires, my quote unquote ministry, to accommodate certain individuals who are not in place. And so that's not favorable, and it's causing me to be waiting for people who may or may not ever make the decision. And, everybody's got their own path. Everybody's got their own story. Everybody makes their own decisions. And I am in no place to judge how anyone makes their decisions, and therefore I won't. But I can judge myself. And so in my great desire to move forward in what I need to do so that I can accomplish the things that I need to accomplish and get to where I need to go, I'm going to have to do things differently. So the plan was laid out to me in a dream realm, I guess, that, I could potentially become a master storyteller. And that is in my chart in various places about the ability to tell stories. And so I have made the decision to go in that direction. Now, I used to be a writer. I used to write all the time, and I just got away from it because I felt like writing was not the best way for me to communicate. But now we have easy access to videos. I can make a video about a story and go back and write all the details and make it amazing later. But I can get the concept of the story out there and let it start ruminating in the minds of the people. So that way, when I do discuss the ins and the outs of it, and bring it into the real life, the real world, people will be familiar with my particular style of storytelling. Now, this is crazy because it's really my oldest daughter who wants to be an author and write and all of this, and I kind of just said, all right, if you want to do that, that's fine. I'm just going to kind of stay out of it, and I guess that's not what's going to happen. So I am going to tell a story. But first, I want to elaborate on this concept of you have to make the decision. A lot of people are waiting for someone else to make a decision for them. They don't feel confident in their decision-making abilities. Me, I learned from a very young age as a young entrepreneur, which I've been an entrepreneur since I was 10, and I've been making things to sell since I was 5. So having this as a part of who I am and has been, supported by my community, I know that it's important to make a decision. So if you are, like I was making cookies to sell at a young age. I invented a board game at a young age. We were selling candy. But whatever it was, once I had the idea, I was making jewelry to sell. They called me the bag lady because I always had a bag with a craft in it wherever I went, so that I could, if I ever got bored, I had something to work on, and I would never just travel with one thing to work on. It would be many things to work on. I'm a very multi-talented person and haven't really been able to tap into that. But that's because I have been waiting, for this perfect tribe of people to move forward, and it just doesn't. That's just not how it works. These people, everybody's going to be ready when they get ready. And instead of me diminishing my quality of life while I'm waiting for other people to get ready, another door is open, and I've decided I'm going to take that door. So, that's what I mean by deciding. It's like looking at your energy, the things that have been assigned to you, and based on the options that you can clearly see, whether it be, should I take this job, or should I leave this man, or should I, go on this weight loss journey, or whatever it may be, should I use my talents, should I charge, how should I charge, all of those things, even deep down into the business. You will be guided through your questioning on what is the proper thing to do. The problem that happens is people ask the questions, and when they get the answers, they don't listen. They don't believe that that's the answer. Things are really, really simple. I have always said that these things are not complicated. Things are very simple, and a lot of times, because things are so simple, people believe that these simple things are not good choices because they're simple. And because they're basic, and because it was thrown right in front of your face, you're like, oh, well, I need to do something else, because obviously that's not the thing I should do, when it's like, but this is what you asked for. This is the answer to the question that you asked, and the thing keeps getting thrown into your face, and a lot of people ignore it. I've never been one of these people. When something is put in front of me and it's a choice point, I make the choice. And it's not about necessarily, there are people who say, like, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. That's not really what this is. This is like, when you're asking a question, how am I going to make money? And someone asks you if you can, like me, what happened to me was, I was like, Dag, I need to make some extra money. And somebody asked me, can you do my hair? And I was like, hair? I don't really do hair, but okay, I can do that. And it was like, oh, I could do this to make money. It was never a thought, because I never did hair to make money. I always do hair so people's hair can be strong and healthy and stuff like that. And what I do to hair, most locticians don't do it. They actually mess hair up a lot. They're just stylists. Like, locticians are just stylists. You should just go to them to get your hair styled, not to get your hair retwisted. That you need to go to a person who specializes in root care. And a lot of these locticians, they don't specialize in root care. They specialize in making it look cute. But when you come to me, it's not going to look cute. But guess what? Your hair going to last forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. I've had my locks for 20 years. Yeah, 20 years. I've had my locks for 20 years. I've never had to cut my locks all off. I've had times when they've gotten thin and, you know, whatever. I've had to combine some. I've had to separate some. But I've never lost my hair, like where all of my hair fell out and I had to start over. Never. And I consistently do my own hair. Sometimes I will go to people to color it, but now I just do my own color. Whatever. That's just something that I picked up. And so I had never thought about doing this for somebody and actually like making money. It just wasn't a consideration for me. But it's like now I'm like, oh, okay, I could do this to make money. Something else I picked up was doing nails. I just picked that up. You know what I mean? And so that's to say that I've been looking for ways to supplement my income. And I have all these things that I could do, but I never set myself up to do them. I do lashes, you know what I mean? Like, I can make money doing lashes. Every once in a while, somebody wants their lashes done. I can set aside time to do that. I actually never set myself up to do that since I moved. And so I look at that as a great, a big mistake of mine, not setting myself up for success in that manner. And so that being said, it's not that, opportunities weren't presented to me. They were presented to me plenty of times. I just didn't believe them. I just said, oh, well, that was who I used to be, or I used to do that kind of stuff. I don't do that kind of stuff anymore. Like making jewelry. Like I used to do that, and I was making the pendulums and stuff like that. But it's like, oh, well, I don't need to make jewelry because somebody else can do that better than me and this and that. And it's like, I am now being faced with the fact that I'm suffering as a result of my lack of discipline in the things that I could do. We all have gifts and talents and things that we can do. You have to be disciplined in those things. You have to be committed to using all of your talents. So that's why your spirit team is not going to tell you what to do. Like if you come to them with a question, they will give you the answer, but again, a lot of people are just, they only want to hear what they want to hear. Like me, I've been in Florida for 3 years. This is the first head of hair I've done in 3 years. There's no reason for that. Except that I really didn't try. I wasn't making an effort. I do lashes. I did not make a single solitary effort to reach into any communities and to offer that service at all. And so, or makeup, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't keep any of that stuff up. And so here I am 3 years into being in this state, and I have not offered a single thing to make this place more beautiful in my own personal way. And, there's the cost of that was my suffering. And that's how a lot of us are. Like, you're not reaching out into the community with the things that you do have. And the cost for that is your own suffering. Like, I'm a baker, you know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of things that I could do. I could just take upon myself to do. And I haven't. And I have to look myself in the face and say, wow, you missed a lot of opportunities to help when you actually had the resources to do it. And now you don't have the resources. And so when you do want to help, it's always a huge sacrifice. And so I don't want to do that moving forward. Moving forward, I want to offer what I can offer. I want to do what I can do. I want to present what I can present, what's laid on my heart to do. And I want to influence people to also make that same decision, to do what you can do, to do what you used to do what you love to do, to whether it makes money or not. It's not about the money part of it. It's like, if you, the way I explain it to people is that if you're working a job that you don't like, right, you need to fill every minute of your time outside of that job with something that you do like. And what will happen is that thing that you don't like will just go away, and you'll have plenty of stuff to do that you do like. So like what happened to me, I was working like at a summer camp back home, and I started to feel like, boy, these people are really bad people, and they were bad people. And I was like, I have to get out of here. So I started filling all of my time, every minute of my time, with something else. Like, I was so busy that getting up and going to work was a burden. And once it became a burden, it was really easy for me to be like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. I don't have time for that. I got to move on. But prior to that, when I was just spending every minute trying to keep my mind off the fact that I had to go and work with these people, I was suffering. I was really, really suffering. And that's not how it works. It's you don't fill your time with what you don't want. You fill your time with what you do want. So me, I have multiple problems now. Like, where I'm working is really not suitable for me and my type of personality. And my living situation is also not suitable for me and my type of personality. And when I try to get time for myself, like where I can do this practice that I'm describing, it's also, I don't have a suitable way to do that. So I'm stuck in a position where I'm having to fight my way out of this situation from multiple perspectives. Like, I don't like my home life, I don't like my work life, I don't even like my private life, because I can't get anything done that I want to get done, because I'm in a position now where the things that I want to do, the things that I need to do, they require money. And so I have been contemplating, how do I get myself out of this scenario? And it's not that I'm looking for advice on how to do it, but I feel like there's power in identifying the problem. So this is why your spirit team won't do certain things. It's because you won't identify the real root of the problem. Sometimes the problem is, like, for example, with exercise, sometimes the problem is you're not exercising because you haven't found an exercise that you like. And so you need to go out and find exercises that you like so that you can actually commit to it. Because the commitment is the solution. Sometimes if your problem is you actually want to change your eating habits, the problem is you haven't found a style of food that you like. And so you need to try multiple styles of food until you really find one that you resonate with. This was a problem that I had because I was just so limited in my food taste. But then once I started trying different foods, I found food that I liked that was way different than the food I grew up on. And, I've been able to change my diet a lot as a result. When it comes to people in your life, part of the problem is you don't have a strategy to meet new people. So with me, this channel has primarily been directed towards the Hebrew Israelite community because that's the community I came out of. But many of those people no longer resonate with me. It's not that I don't resonate with them. We skin folk. We kinfolk. Most of us. But they don't resonate with me. And so I have to find a way to resonate with a group of people who are going to actually respond to my message, who need to hear my message that I'm not currently able to get into contact with. So that's why we're going to be doing story time. Because I feel like that's a different group of people. Channeling and stories. Different groups of people result respond to that kind of data point information. So if you're having a problem, did I talk about work? So I have been, again, trying to identify what I'm going to fill my time with. If I'm not working, what am I going to be filling my time with? So that's when it came back to me. Oh, you could do hair, you could do lashes, you could do nails, you could do this, you could do that. You know, go back to making jewelry, go back to doing this, go back to doing that, but do it with the knowledge that you currently have. And I was like, oh, okay, I could definitely see that. I could definitely see why I would want to do that. I can definitely see why that would be valuable. So I'm going to, what I'm doing with that, because a lot of people do have that problem, is that I'm going to outline all the different things, products and services and things I want to do that I can offer. And I'm going to outline those things, and I'm going to look for opportunities to do what I can do. So for example, we recently had a holiday tea party, and so I put that on my schedule. We're going to do that twice a year. Then we're having our holiday Christmas party. That's something we do once a year. Then I'm just going to start building out my schedule with events that I want to do with my kids and our family anyway. And we'll just invite people to come. And the ones who want to come, that's fine. And the ones who don't, that's fine too. It doesn't matter. But the whole point of it is I like events. So I just started filling my calendar with events that I could do and things that I could participate in and lend my energy to. And I've committed to those things. It's like, this is why some people need an organized religion, because the organized religion helps you to do this without the trauma of not having any kind of support or anywhere to put the energy. They give you all kinds of different places to put the energy. That's why the church is built of many different types of people. All those type of people make the church function. You can't just have super overly religious people. You can't just have people who cook or hospitality people. You can't just have people who are good with kids. You can't just have people who are good with numbers. You can't just have people who are good with building. You can't just have evangelizers. A church is built of many kinds of people, and the person who is facilitating all of this is the pastor or the priest with the assistance of the Holy Spirit, telling them where to put all these people's talents to use. That is the point of the church. And people don't understand that there's a lot of churches who do function like that, but you have to get outside your comfort zone and look. And there's no way for any of this stuff to work if you're just sitting at home waiting for the Spirit to tell you what you're supposed to do. That's not how it happens. A good idea, I got this from Jim Rohn. A good idea rarely ever shows up out of anywhere. That's not how good ideas work. The good idea comes from the action. In the course of your action, a good idea will show up. And so that's how you have to operate. Now, I've made mistakes with this too by taking people's ideas that they gave to me and not properly vetting them. And so what does that look like? What does it look like? It looks like putting it to my spirit team and saying, is this really what I should do? If this is what I should do, give me an indication yes or an indication no. And then taking money as the indication yes or no. Money is not an indication of yes or no. I really think that's important. Money is not an indication of yes or no. Just because you can make money from something is not an indication of yes, you should do it, or no, you shouldn't do it. Money is an influencer. It influences you to do things you may not should do, or it influences you to do things that you really do want to do. But it's not an indicator. It's an influencer. Okay. All right. Ow, I'm making a video, please. Thank you. Can you close the door? Close the door, please. Thank you. So, yeah, money is not an indicator. The indicator is, okay, I'm saying to myself, you know what? I really want to get back into doing things with my hands. What kind of things can I do with my hands that I used to be able to do, or whatever? And then all of a sudden, for me, in my head, it was like an idea popped up. Like, oh, you could take this knowledge that you just learned and turn it into jewelry, like custom jewelry. Or I was like, man, I really want to get out of this, living situation. What can I do to influence that? And then something pops up in my head. Hey, that information you just learned, you can use that to decide the colors of paint that go into your house. Oh, wow, is that what I could use that for? I had never thought about that. So there is this ability of ideas. Ideas are far more valuable than money anyway, because you can take an idea and make money off of it forever. One good idea is really all it takes people to build a lifetime of wealth. And that's exactly what you want to do. You want to, consider the things and then come up with the idea. Boom. Now, it's not about whether someone will buy it or not, because that's not what you're worried about. What you're worried about is, can you use it for yourself? Because that's another thing. When you're asking what you should do, your number one client is yourself. So you can't properly identify who you are in relation to the planets, in relation to, there's, in that Beyonce song, she says something about her connection in relation to the sun. And really that's what is your connection in relation to the sun? Who are you in the solar story, in the lunar story? Who are you? And so if you can't figure out who you are in relation to this story, then honestly it's going to be a problem. It's going to be problematic. Most of the problem people have is that they don't know themselves. And for the people who do know themselves, they won't decide. That's literally the two main things. You need to know who you are, and then you need to decide. You need to decide, I'm going to do this. Who cares if it takes you off your path 10 years? Who cares if it takes you off your path 20 years? What is meant for you will get to you. There are no mistakes. I said to someone yesterday, I regret nothing I've ever done. I don't care how many people go, you have 3 children by 3 different fathers, and you had money and you lost it all. You've got almost a PhD. Why won't you finish it? I don't care. I don't regret anything I've ever done. I feel like I could have made better choices, but that's in hindsight is 2020. In the time when I was making the decision, it seemed like the best decision to me. And I'm allowed to say, oh, that might have been not a great decision, but hey, I learned X, Y, and Z. That's what life is about. No one was sent to this planet to execute everything perfectly. That's a huge misconception in the spiritual community. You're going to execute things wrongly. No matter how much astrology you watch, you're still going to execute things wrong. Because it's not about watching the astrology to figure out when to cast your spell. It's about watching the astrology to see if you're in alignment with the energy, which is what I was doing on my daily reports, which I hope to get back to in January. So I thought they were very helpful in keeping me focused on the energy for the day. So, and I do those, for me, I just share them because I think they're valuable, but I was doing the reports to keep me focused so that I could be in alignment with the energy and always in a position of transmuting, as opposed to just allowing things to happen and having no influence over what was going on in my life or in the cosmic cycle of things. So that's the benefit of that, the ability to influence the cosmic cycle in the way that best suits you, because you are part of the Godhead and you are also a recipient of what the Godhead does. And so if you don't have your energy aligned with that, you're not going to receive what you're supposed to receive. Someone's going to jump in there and they're going to take it, which is fine if that's what you want, but I prefer to have what is owed to me as opposed to keep allowing people to take it. So alright, so let's do story time. So this is a new segment. I'm going to chop this part of the video out. And so this is a story of three little elves. Each of the elves, the girls, they had... Okay, but I'm trying to tell a story. So can you please go back out there? No. Yeah, can you go out there, please? And close the door? Thank you. I have a treat for you if you let me finish this. Out there. But you have to go out there.
Have a treat?
After when I finish, okay? If you go out there and close the door. Can you close the door, please? I'll give you one. When I finish, don't open the door again until I come out there. Okay? All right, close the door. All right, thank you. All right, so he said, "I'm ready." All right, right timing. All right, so this is the story of the three little elves. So there are three little elves, and they are in the AmaruKhan village. This is a small village by the water, and there's dragons there, and there's fairies, and each of the elves has a fairy godmother, because the way that their community works is that everybody has a godparent from a different community, so that each of the children, as they grow up, have the opportunity to learn about the different communities. So you have the first little elf. She is getting ready to go to high school, and so she is learning about the elf business and what her parents did to do in the community to support the community. And so you have the next little elf. She is in middle school, and so she is being exposed as a middle school elf to all of the different jobs in the community, in the village. So because with the middle school elves, they allow them to learn all the different jobs in the hopes that they will decide that the jobs that their parents did are the jobs that they want. They don't want them to feel like they're losing anything by not doing someone else's job. And then you have the little elf who is in about 5th or 6th grade, and this little elf is learning that what it means to be an elf. And so she has like powers that are turning on. She can do things she couldn't do when she was smaller, and she's really learning about those different powers that she has. So each of these little elves, they have a fairy godmother. So because they're elves, they have a godparent who's of a different background than them. So they all have fairy godparents. And so, and each of the elves has a different fairy godparent. And these fairies are all, they're friends, of course. And they are the type of fairy godparents who don't really try to give yes or no answers. So you know how sometimes you have grandparents who you could ask them a question and they kind of turn it into a question and give it back to you. That's what these fairy godparents are. Instead of telling the girls yes or no, they sort of ask them the question in a different way. They reflect the question back to them to see if they can come to a decision for themselves, because the fairies know more than anyone else, being that they ride on the air, is that wherever the wind blows, there is an answer. But it is up to you, the person who is setting the sail, to decide which wind you would like to use when you're setting your sail. You have to know which wind to use. So if you're on a river or something and you're trying to go to the other side of the river, you don't want to use a south wind, you want to use a north wind. You have to know the wind, because messages come through the wind. And the fairies are very aware of that, but the elves, they don't quite know that the messages come through the wind. And so the fairies are trying to make sure that the little elves are capable of hearing the messages in the wind, but not necessarily listening to every message that comes in the wind, because there's some very, very mean and wicked, what would you call them? Like wizards. There's some wicked wizards that they send messages into the wind. That's all they do, all day and all night. They put messages in the wind. And many an elf are distracted by the messages that the wizards put in the wind. And the wizards use all kinds of magic to send these messages in the wind. And so an unsuspecting fairy or an unsuspecting elf who has not had the training by a fairy godmother may think that every message they hear in the wind is for them. So the fairy godparents take it very seriously to teach the elves how to determine which wind is the best for them to follow, which wind gives them the truest answer. Because the fairies know that the real answers come from the inside. They don't come from the outside. But the elves don't know this. They're very young. They're still learning. So the oldest elf goes to her fairy godmother and she asks her, should I do the job of my parents? Should I take on the family business? And the fairy godmother asks her, if you didn't take on the job of the elf family business, if you didn't take on the job of the elf family business, what would you do? And the elf was very confused at this because even though she had been through the training that the middle school elves get, and she didn't like any of those jobs particularly, she had done no exploring of the village since the time when in the middle school they had taken them to all these places to see all the jobs. She'd done no exploring of her on her own. She didn't ask any further questions. She wasn't curious about different people's jobs, and she hadn't talked to anyone. And so she couldn't answer that question. And so the fairy godmother told her, well, when you have an answer to that question, come back and we'll talk about it. So the middle school elf went to her fairy godmother and she asked her, am I only allowed to have one of these jobs in the village? And the fairy godmother asked the middle school elf, well, what jobs would you like to do? And the middle school elf thought about that. And she said, well, I like the elf family business. It's a good business. But I also like the fairy family business. I love to help people and give them questions to answer and to help them think. And the elf family business is very much working with your hands and, getting dirty. And I love that too. But I also like to talk to people. And her fairy godmother said to her, well, my child, nobody said you had to choose one. In this village, you can have as many jobs as you want. And the middle school elf was very excited about that. She really remembered that as she was looking at all these different jobs, because she thought to herself, man, I love all of this stuff. Maybe I'll get a bunch of different jobs. I'll do many different things because all of these things look so exciting and interesting. The elementary school elf, she asked her fairy godmother, must I use these elf powers? Because the elf powers are very, very different from the fairy powers. And I would much prefer to have the fairy powers than the elf powers. And her fairy godmother looked very confused. And she said to her, well, elves have elf power and fairies have fairy power. I do not know that you can have the power of the fairy if you're an elf. And the child asked her fairy godmother, further, well, if I can't have the power of the fairy, does that mean I can only do the job of the elf? And the fairy godmother pondered that, said to her, well, the job of the elf and the job of the fairy is not contingent on the power that they have. These are choices. You can choose to use the power of the fairies. You can choose to use the power of the elf. But it does not mean you become an elf or become a fairy if you're an elf, or become an elf if you're a fairy. You're just using those powers. Because all the powers are within you. Just depends on which ones you use. And the elementary school fairy was very, very satisfied with that answer. And she thought that she was going to use the powers of the elf and the powers of the fairy. So in this fairy tale, which elf are you? Are you the elementary school elf who's going to use the power of the elves and the fairies and integrate that into your everyday life? Are you the middle school elf who is going to try to do everybody's job and, work herself to death in the process? Gain a lot of knowledge, but work herself to death in the process of learning everybody's jobs. Or are you the high school elf who is basically going to go into the elf family business because she didn't even ask questions about what the other people in the village did? Even though she learned it, she's well aware that there's other jobs in the village. She never asked any questions. And therefore she is pretty much deciding that she's just going to go into the elf family business. This is where we are in the story. You have to decide, and you don't have to pick one elf or one fairy or one anything. That's the whole point of the story. You can do whichever combination of things that you want. But you know who decided what they were going to do? The elementary school elf. The middle school elf. The high school elf also decided. But which elf is probably going to be the happiest? I would say it's probably the elementary school elf. Because she's going to learn and develop the elf powers, and she's going to learn and develop the fairy powers. Not because she is a fairy, she'll still be an elf, but she'll be an elf with fairy powers. And for the middle school elf, it's not because she's going to do all of these jobs forever, but guess what? She'll know how to do everyone's job. So if there's an emergency, if there's a problem, she can just jump right in and help. That's a useful person. The less than useful person is the one who's just going to do the elf job. Although doing the elf family business is very, very useful. We need people who are going to do the family business. Absolutely. But that person who does the elf family business without considering her own desires is a person who is probably not going to be very fulfilled at her job because she never looked outside to see what the other options were. The decision doesn't come from the outside, but the choices do. The decision doesn't come from the outside, but the choices do. The choices that are open to you are on the outside of you, but the decision comes from the inside. You make the decision on the inside. And so we're going to follow these three elves. I'll give them names. I can't think of names right now. That would be way too much. I'm a channeler, but channeling in names like that, I'm going to have to ask, what are these elves' names? Because this is our new village. This is our new village that we're creating. We're describing for our AmaruKhan nation, which is our tribal kingdom. And so we can create this village however we want to. We can create this town ship however we want to. And so this is just the first story in our little town that we're creating. So I hope the story was helpful. Because I've never told a story like that before. And of course, if you need any of my products or services, in the description is my email, and you can send me an email and we can talk. So shalom, peace, and blessings, and we'll see you in the next video.